Imagine, just for a moment, that the entire world is a single tiny village. I want you to close your eyes, assuming you aren't driving or operating heavy machinery, of course, and really visualize this. Picture a time, maybe 200 years ago. If you lived in a village in rural India, or even in Europe for that matter, your entire economic reality was defined by the physical boundaries of that village.
Right. Your world was as far as you could walk in a day, basically.
Exactly. Your food, it came from the farm just down the path. Your clothes, woven by a weaver maybe a few lanes over.
Yeah.
If you wanted to trade, you walked to the weekly market in the square, and that was it.
The horizon was a wall. It was an incredibly contained existence. Geography was, for all intents and purposes, destiny.
Destiny, that's the word.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a surplus of grain but a mountain range stood between you and the next town, that grain likely rotted. Space was a barrier that human effort just couldn't easily overcome. You were sort of locked in by the terrain.
Exactly. But then this explosion happens. Science, technology, steam engines, internal combustion. Suddenly, those boundaries don't just crack. They completely shatter. They evaporate. We aren't just trading with the next village anymore. We are moving goods across entire oceans. We're transmitting ideas in milliseconds. We're moving people at speeds that, would have looked like absolute sorcery to our ancestors.
And that really brings us to the core of what we're analyzing today. We often tend to view transport and communication as, utilities.
Yeah, it's just boring stuff.
Just boring things we use to commute to work or send a WhatsApp message. But in the context of a nation state, they are biological. If India is a living organism, transport and communication are the arteries and veins.
The circulatory system.
They are the circulatory system. If the blood stops flowing, the organs die. If transport halts, the national economy collapses. It is that visceral. It's that fundamental.
I love that biological analogy. The arteries and veins of India. It really sets the stakes. Welcome back, learner, to another deep dive.
Hello again.
And look, this isn't just a casual chat. This is a strategic breakdown tailored specifically for your UPSC preparation. And it's brought to you by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
It's a pleasure to be here. We have a massive amount of ground to cover today, and the goal is to bridge that gap between the textbook and the exam hall.
We do. But before we jump into the lifelines of the nation, I have to make a humble request.
Go on.
If you're finding value in these deep dives, if they're helping you connect the dots between these dry textbooks and the dynamic world of the exam, please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel.
It genuinely helps keep this content flowing.
It really does. And if you're capable and you want to support this educational mission even further, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It ensures we can keep the lights on and the research deep.
And to that end, a massive shout out to all of our current supporters. This content really only exists because of you. We genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Also, don't be a silent observer. Like the video, leave a comment.
It helps the algorithm find other serious learners like yourself.
It really does. Now, a quick resource alert. Free notes with practice previous year questions, that's PYQs, are available on the public Telegram channel.
But if you want the gold standard,
yes, if you want the gold standard access to all videos in this series at once, plus premium notes with detailed explanations, extra PYQs, and organized model mains answers, you need to check out the private Telegram library. Just DM us on the public Telegram channel to join.
And I have to say, those model mains answers are particularly crucial. Today, we aren't just absorbing facts. We're learning how to structure those facts into arguments, which is exactly what the mains requires.
So the mission for today, we are decoding NCERT Class 10 Geography, Chapter 7, titled Lifelines of National Economy. But we aren't just reading the book, right? That would be, too easy.
No, reading the book is what you do in 10th grade. Today, we're taking that foundational knowledge and linking it directly to the UPSC Mains General Studies papers from 2013 right up to 2025. We're going to see how a simple sentence about a road network evolves into a complex question about social justice, economic integration, and even strategic defense.
Okay, let's start with the most visible part of this circulatory system then, the backbone. Roadways.
It's the network that touches the most lives. It is, I think, the most democratic form of transport we have.
The sheer scale is just mind-boggling. India has one of the largest road networks in the world, aggregating to about, 56 lakh kilometers?
56 lakh kilometers. It's a number that's hard to even visualize. It's like wrapping the Earth hundreds of times over.
It's immense.
And historically, this represents a really significant shift. For a long time, especially in the colonial era and immediately post-independence, the railways were the undisputed giant.
Right, they were the symbol of modernity.
The primary integrator, exactly. But over the last few decades, roadways have. Well, they've edged past railways in terms of growth, and I'd argue functional importance in many areas.
The text lists 6 specific reasons why roadways score over railways. I really want to unpack these because they often get glossed over, but they represent some fundamental economic principles.
They really do.
Let's start with the wallet. The first one is construction cost.
Pure economic. I mean, just think about what it takes to build a railway line.
It's a huge undertaking.
You need land acquisition for a distinct, dedicated track. You need precise engineering. Dissected topography is a great geographical term. Think about the Western Ghats or the lower Himalayas. To run a train through there, you need tunnels, you need massive bridges, and you have to keep the track almost perfectly level. A road can curve, it can dip, it can wind around the landscape. It's flexible. It kind of flows with the land rather than cutting straight through it.
Which leads right into the third point, gradients. Roads can negotiate higher slopes.
Exactly. I mean, if you've ever driven to a hill station like Shimla or Uri, you know this instinctively. You can drive a truck up a steep incline that a train simply physically cannot climb.
Why is that? The physics of it.
It's the friction. The friction of steel wheels on steel rails limits the gradient. If it's too steep, the wheels just spin. Rubber tires on asphalt have much better grip, which allows us to supply Himalayan outposts that would otherwise be completely cut off from the rest of the country.
That's a great visualization. It really explains why the truck is king in the mountains.
It is.
Then there's the economics of the load itself. Road transport is economical for few persons and relatively smaller amount of goods over short distances.
This is the basic logic of logistics. I mean, you wouldn't charter a 50-wagon freight train to move your sofa across Delhi, would you?
No, of course not.
It's wildly inefficient. You wouldn't use a train to send 100 kilos of tomatoes from a farm to a nearby market. For those short hauls, what we call last-mile connectivity roads are just unbeatable.
And that connects perfectly to the fifth reason, door-to-door service.
This is the game changer. It reduces the cost of loading and unloading. A train stops at a station, a ship stops at a port, an airplane stops at an airport.
None of them come to your house.
None of them come to your warehouse. None of them come to your farm gate. A truck does. A tempo does. This eliminates the need for all that intermediate handling, which saves money and, crucially, prevents damage to goods.
So in a way, the road is the feeder.
That is the sixth and perhaps the most structural reason. Road transport acts as a feeder to other modes. How do you get to the airport?
By road.
How does the coal get from the mine to the railway siding?
Often by road.
Exactly. Without roads, the other modes, rail, air, water, are just isolated islands. Roads are the connective tissue that links the entire body together. They integrate the whole system.
Now let's talk hierarchy, because not all roads are created equal, right? The NCERT classifies them into 6 classes. And at the very top, we have something that sounds incredibly grand. The golden quadrilateral superhighways.
And it is grand. This was a massive infrastructure project, one of the most ambitious in independent India. The objective was simple: speed.
Just cut down travel time.
We needed to reduce the time and distance between the megacities. Before this, driving from Delhi to Kolkata was an absolute ordeal. It took days.
And it connects the 4 metros: Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, and Mumbai.
A 6-lane superhighway. But it's not just a square. It includes 2 massive corridors. The north-south corridor linking Srinagar and Jammu and Kashmir all the way down to Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu.
Wow, top to bottom.
And the east-west corridor connecting Silchar in Assam to Porbandar in Gujarat.
That is spanning the entire length and breadth of the subcontinent. Who builds and maintains something of this magnitude?
That would be the NHAI, the National Highway Authority of India. These are federal assets meant for high-speed interstate movement. They are, you could say, the autobahns of India.
Okay, so below the superhighways, we have the national highways, the NH network.
These are the primary road systems. They link the extreme parts of the country and are maintained by the CPWD, the Central Public Works Department.
Right, and there's a nice historical nod in the text to the Sher Shah Suri Marg,
which is National Highway number 1, connecting Delhi to Amritsar. It's a great reminder that rulers have understood the importance of roads for centuries. Sher Shah Suri knew that if you want to control an empire, you need a road running right through it.
Then we go down the ladder. State highways, which link state capitals to district headquarters, maintained by the state PWD.
Yep.
And below that, district roads connecting district HQs to other places in the district, maintained by the Zilla Parishad.
And then finally, we reach the capillaries, the rural roads.
These link rural areas and villages to towns. The text highlights a really important scheme here, the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana PMGSY.
This is a critical scheme. The objective is to ensure every village in the country is linked to a major town by an all-season motorable road.
And that phrase, all season, is key, isn't it?
It's everything. You have to understand the implication of all season.
Yeah.
Before this, many villages had unmetalled roads, basically, mud tracks.
Right.
When the monsoon hit, they were completely cut off from the world. No doctor, no market, no school access. The scheme isn't just about asphalt. It's about basic human rights and access. It's about ending rural isolation.
And finally, the sixth category, which is geopolitically spicy border roads.
These are special. They're maintained by the BRO, the Border Roads Organization, a Government of India undertaking. These aren't built for commercial profit. They're strategic.
Right, for defense.
They develop roads in the very difficult terrain of the north and northeastern border areas.
The text says these roads have improved accessibility in areas of difficult terrain and helped in the economic development of these areas.
It is vital for two reasons. One, defense. You cannot defend a border if you can't move troops, artillery, and supplies to it quickly. That's obvious.
Sure.
But two, and this is just as important, integration. If people living on the border feel cut off from the mainland, they feel alienated. Roads bring them into the national fold. It makes the idea of India accessible to them, physically.
Now, speaking of bringing things into the fold, let's bring in a UPSC connection. We've talked about rural roads and difficult terrain. How does this connect to what you might see in the exam?
Okay, let's look at 2025 GS1 Q5. The question asks, what are non-farm primary activities? How are these activities related to physiographic features in India?
Okay, so non-farm primary activities, that would be things like, what, mining, quarrying, logging, maybe fishing?
Exactly, activities that extract raw materials from nature but aren't farming. Now think about the role of roads that we just discussed. The text says roads act as a feeder and provide door-to-door service. In difficult physiographic regions, like the hilly terrain of the Chota Nagpur Plateau or the forests of the Northeast, you often cannot build railways easily.
Right, because of the gradients and topography we just covered. It's too expensive and difficult.
Precisely. So road connectivity becomes the enabler for these non-farm activities. If you have a stone quarry in a hilly district or a timber operation in a forest, you rely on district roads and rural roads to move that stone or wood to a processing center.
Without the road, the resource is basically worthless.
It stays in the ground. The road network allows the physiographic potential, be it minerals, timber, or even something like honey, to be converted into economic value. It unlocks it.
That is a brilliant connection. The road isn't just a slab of concrete. It is the unlock key for the resources in that specific terrain. It connects the potential to the market.
Exactly. It turns geography into economy.
Let's switch tracks, pun absolutely intended to railways. The NCERT called it the principal mode for freight and passengers.
And it has been an integrating force for over 150 years. I mean, the first train steamed off from Mumbai to Thane in 1853. It covered just 34 kilometers.
A tiny distance.
A short trip, but it changed everything. Today, the railways bind the economic life of the country. It accelerates the development of industry and agriculture by moving bulk goods, coal, grain, iron ore over massive distances that trucks just can't handle efficiently.
The network is huge, reorganized into 16 zones, though that number fluctuates with administrative changes. The concept of zones remains.
Yeah.
But what I found fascinating is the section on physiographic challenges.
Yes.
The text essentially explains the geography of the railway network, where it thrives and where it struggles.
This is classic geography. If you look at a map of Indian railways, it's not evenly distributed. It's incredibly dense in some places and almost non-existent in others. And the most favorable region is the northern plains.
Why there? What makes the plain so special for trains?
Well, there are three main factors. First, vast level land. It's flat, so laying tracks is cheap and easy. You don't need to blast through rocks or build massive viaducts.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, high population density. That means millions of passengers, which makes it profitable. And third, rich agricultural resources. That means tons and tons of grain to transport. That's your freight. It's the perfect recipe for railway density.
But even in paradise, there's a snake, as they say.
The rivers. The northern plains are drained by these massive rivers, the Ganga, the Yamuna, the Brahmaputra, with incredibly wide beds. To cross them, you need bridges.
And bridges are expensive.
Bridges increase the cost and the engineering complexity significantly. So even in the plains, hydrography presents a serious challenge.
Then we have the difficult regions, the hilly terrains of the peninsular region.
Here, the tracks are laid through low hills, gaps, or tunnels. It's not impossible by any means, but it's much slower and more expensive to build than in the plains. You have to respect the relief of the land.
And the Himalayas.
Highly unfavorable, almost impossible in many areas. You have high relief, meaning steep, jagged mountains. You have a sparse population, so fewer passengers to buy tickets, and a lack of major economic opportunities compared to the plains. Historically, it simply wasn't economically viable to build dense networks there.
The text also mentions the sandy plains of western Rajasthan, the swamps of Gujarat, and the forested tracts of central India as being difficult areas.
Right.
But we have overcome some of this, haven't we? The Konkan Railway is highlighted as a specific case study.
The Konkan Railway is an absolute engineering marvel. It runs along the west coast, cutting through the Sahyadri Ranges. It facilitated movement in a crucial economic region connecting Mumbai to Mangalore and beyond.
But it must have been incredibly difficult to build.
Immensely. And the text illustrates the challenge vividly. It mentions sinking of tracks in some stretches and frequent landslides during the monsoon.
So it's a constant battle between human engineering and geological reality.
It is. And it's a battle we have to fight because that connectivity is essential for the region's economy.
The chapter also briefly mentions some social problems facing the railways: ticketless travel, theft, unnecessary chain pulling.
Which is a reminder that infrastructure isn't just about steel and concrete. It requires civic sense to function properly.
Right, but let's look at the strategic side again with a UPSC lens. You mentioned the Himalayas being unfavorable for railways.
Yes, let's connect this to 2014 GS1 Q21. The question is, British planters developed tea gardens all along the Shivaliks, but they did not succeed beyond the Darjeeling area. Explain.
That's a great question. Why did tea work in Darjeeling but fail in other parts of the very same mountain range?
This is a beautiful application of the text. The NCERT explicitly states that the Himalayas are unfavorable for railways due to high relief and sparse population. However,
But they did build one to Darjeeling.
the British built a specific railway link, the famous toy train, the narrow gauge, right up to Darjeeling. Why?
Because they wanted the tea.
And a sanatorium, a place for their officials to escape the heat. That specific rail link integrated Darjeeling into the national market and, more importantly, the export market via the Kolkata port.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Other parts of the Shivaliks, or Himalayas, like parts of what is now Uttarakhand or Himachal at that time, didn't get that dense transport network. The economic return wasn't seen as high enough to justify the massive engineering cost in such unfavorable terrain.
So the tea gardens elsewhere struggled with logistics.
Exactly. They couldn't get the tea to the port efficiently. The railway was the lifeline that determined success or failure. The presence or absence of that one piece of infrastructure sealed their fate.
Wow. That puts the unfavorable terrain point into such a specific historical context. It wasn't just that it was hard to build. The lack of building literally defined the economic destiny of an entire region.
Precisely. Transport determines economic geography. If you can't move the product is worthless.
Okay, moving on to the third mode of transport, one that we often don't see because it's underground, pipelines.
The silent arteries? We often forget about them, but they are absolutely crucial for our energy security.
The text says pipelines are a new arrival. Originally, they were just for moving water. Now they transport crude oil, petroleum products, and natural gas.
And even solids.
Yes, the text mentions slurry. Can you explain that? It sounds a bit messy.
It's fascinating physics, really. You take a solid, mineral-like iron ore, and you crush it into a very fine powder. Then you mix it with water to create this thick sludge or slurry.
Okay.
Now, it behaves like a liquid. You can actually pump it through a pipeline over hundreds of kilometers, just like you would with oil. At the other end, you filter out the water, and you have your iron ore ready for processing at a steel plant.
So you're moving a solid mountain through a pipe.
In a sense, yes. It allows you to move heavy solids without a single train or truck.
The economic logic here is interesting. The text says high initial cost laying the pipe is expensive, but minimal running cost.
And crucially, no transshipment losses or delays. A train can get stuck at a signal, a truck can get stuck in a traffic jam or face a strike. A pipeline just flows. It creates a continuous, uninterrupted supply.
The text highlights how pipelines have changed the location strategy of industries. This was a big aha moment for me.
It is. This connects directly to industrial location theory. In the past, you had to build your oil refinery either near the oil field, at the source, or near the port where the imported oil arrived.
Right, because moving crude oil overland was hard and expensive.
Exactly. But because of pipelines, we now have major refineries in places like Baroni, Mathura, and Panipat.
Which are far inland. Panipat is right next to Delhi. Mathura is deep in UP.
Deep inside the country. Pipelines allow us to decouple the industry from the raw material source. You can bring the crude oil to the market, to the interior where the demand is, and refine it right there. It decentralizes industrial development.
So it means we don't just have industry on the coast, we can have it in the heartland.
It changes the economic map of the country.
We have 3 major networks mentioned, one from Upper Assam to Kanpur, another from Salaya in Gujarat to Jalandhar in Punjab, and the big gas pipeline, the HVJ Hazira Vijaipur Jagdishpur.
The HPJ is vital. It's a gas pipeline that feeds fertilizer and power plants in the interior. It provided a huge impetus to India's gas production and directly helped the Green Revolution by supplying fertilizer plants in the agricultural heartland of UP and MP.
Let's connect this to the UPSC PYQs again.
2 connections here. First, 2014 GS1 Q23. Account for the change in the spatial pattern of the iron and steel industry in the world.
Wait, that's about steel. We're talking about oil.
But the principle is identical. The question is asking about spatial patterns where things are located. Just as pipelines allowed oil refineries to move inland away from ports, changes in transport technology like bulk carriers for ore and pipelines for slurry allow steel plants to move.
So it's about understanding that transport technology dictates industrial location.
Yes. If you can move raw materials cheaply, you can build your factory near the market. The answer requires you to apply the logic of transport cost reduction, which the NCERT explains so well using the example of pipelines.
Got it. It's the underlying logic. And the second connection.
2025 GS1 Q14. Give a geographical explanation of the distribution of offshore oil reserves. The NCERT text explicitly mentions Mumbai High and Bassein being connected by pipelines to the mainland.
Right. Those are our big offshore fields.
The pipeline is a technology that makes offshore extraction economically viable for the mainland market. Without the pipeline to bring that gas and oil to the coast and then inland, finding oil in the ocean wouldn't help us very much.
It's the physical link that monetizes the resource. Okay, let's leave the land and go to the water. The blue economy.
Waterways. The text calls them the cheapest means of transport.
They are fuel efficient. They're eco-friendly, great for heavy, bulky goods. But the stats are a bit mixed, aren't they? We have 14,500 kilometers of navigable waterways, but only about 5,685 kilometers are navigable by mechanized vessels.
It is a vastly underutilized resource. We have designated several national waterways, NW1 on the Ganga, NW2 on the Brahmaputra, NW3 in the Kerala backwaters. But compared to roads and rail, they carry a tiny fraction of our internal freight.
Why is that?
Siltation, seasonal water flow, lack of infrastructure. Compare this to Europe, where the Rhine is basically a floating superhighway, or China with the Yangtze. We have a lot of work to do here.
However, when we look at overseas trade, the story completely flips.
Totally. 95% of India's trade by volume moves by sea. We have a coastline of over 7,500 kilometers and 12 major ports. This is our link to the global economy. You cannot have globalization without ports.
Let's do a quick port tour of India, as described in the chapter. Imagine we're sailing down the west coast.
We start with Kandla, now called Deen Dayal Port in Gujarat. This has a fascinating history.
Go on.
It was developed immediately after independence. Why? Because we lost the port of Karachi to Pakistan during partition. Karachi was the main outlet for the entire Northwest.
So we had a huge gap to fill.
A massive gap. Suddenly, we needed a port to serve the granary and industrial belt of the Northwest, so Kandla was built to ease the pressure on Mumbai. It's a great example of how political borders reshape economic geography.
Then we hit Mumbai itself. The biggest port, a spacious natural harbor.
So big and so busy that it got completely choked, so we had to build another one right next to it, Jawaharlal Nehru Port, or JNPT.
Which was planned specifically to decongest Mumbai.
Yes, designed as a modern hub port handling the massive container traffic.
Moving south, we have Marmagao in Goa.
The premier iron ore export port. About 50% of India's iron ore goes out from here. If you see a ship leaving Marmagao, it's likely heading to China or Japan. filled with iron ore.
And New Mangalore and Karnataka, also exporting iron ore from the Kudramukh mines. And finally, Kochi in the extreme southwest.
A beautiful lagoon port with a natural harbor. It sits right at the entrance of a lagoon, very sheltered.
Okay, let's hop over to the east coast. We'll start at the bottom with Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu.
A natural harbor with a rich hinterland. It handles a lot of trade with our neighbors like Sri Lanka and the Maldives.
Then Chennai.
Now, this is an artificial port and one of the oldest. It's ranked second in volume, but unlike Mumbai or Kochi, it didn't have a natural sheltered harbor. We had to build massive breakwaters out into the sea to create one.
Right, and then Visakhapatnam.
The deepest landlocked and well-protected port, originally developed as an outlet for, you guessed it, iron ore.
Teridwip in Odisha.
Also specializes in iron ore, serving the mineral-rich belt of Jharkhand and Odisha. You see a pattern here.
And finally, the grand old dame, Kolkata and its subsidiary, Haldia.
Kolkata is unique. It's an inland riverine port on the Hooghly River, not on the sea itself. It serves the massive Ganga-Brahmaputra hinterland.
But that comes with a problem.
A massive problem. Silt. The river is constantly dumping mud, so it requires constant, expensive dredging to keep the channel deep enough for big ships to come in. Haldia was developed downstream just to relieve some of the pressure on Kolkata.
That's a comprehensive coastline. Now, how does this link to a UPSC question?
Let's look at 2020 GS1 Q14. The interlinking of rivers can provide viable solutions to the multidimensional, interrelated problems of droughts, floods, and interrupted navigation.
Interrupted navigation. That phrase just jumps out.
Exactly. The NCERT text highlights that we have these great rivers, the Ganga, the Brahmaputra, but navigation is limited. Only 5,685 kilometers is usable by mechanized vessels. Why?
Seasonal water levels.
Sometimes too much water, which causes floods, and sometimes too little, which is drought. The argument for interlinking rivers is to create a more consistent, connected water grid that would boost this cheapest means of transport.
So if you can stabilize water levels through interlinking,
you can turn more of these rivers into viable, year-round national waterways, which directly solves the interrupted navigation problem. The question expects you to make that link.
it connects the potential of the waterways to the engineering solution of interlinking.
Correct.
Okay, let's take to the skies. Airways.
The fastest, most comfortable, and definitely the most prestigious mode of transport.
And most expensive. But the text makes a crucial point. It's not just about luxury or saving time for business executives. It's about accessibility in difficult terrain.
Specifically Northeast India.
Right. The text asks us to imagine the Northeast without air transport. You have big rivers like the Brahmaputra that flood annually. You have dissected relief, dense forests, international frontiers.
Building roads and railways there is incredibly hard and slow, as we've already discussed. But a plane or a helicopter doesn't care about a flooded river or a dense forest. It just flies right over it.
So in the Northeast, air transport isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline.
It often is. It's sometimes the only way to move people or emergency supplies, especially during floods.
The text mentions Pawan Han's helicopters providing services to ONGC for its offshore operations, and to these inaccessible areas like the Northeast, J&K, and Himachal.
And it notes that air travel was nationalized back in 1953 with Air India. Now, obviously, the landscape has changed significantly since then with privatization, but the role of air connectivity in national integration remains exactly the same.
From connecting places to connecting minds, let's talk about communication.
This is where the pace of change has been just breathtaking. We've moved from the physical movement of paper to the digital movement of electrons.
But the physical network is still huge. The Indian Postal Network is the largest in the world.
It handles parcels and personal written communications. The text makes a distinction between first-class mail and second-class mail.
Right. First class is cards and envelopes. These get airlifted. They're treated with priority. Second class includes book packets, newspapers. These go by surface, mail, land, and water.
And to speed things up, they introduce special channels. The Rajdhani channel, Metro channel, Green channel. It shows an attempt to segment and optimize the flow of physical information.
But the real revolution, of course, is telecom.
India has one of the largest telecom networks in Asia. The text mentions STD subscriber trunk dialing. It says that more than 2/3 of villages were covered with STD facilities.
That feels almost vintage now, doesn't it? In the era of 5G and WhatsApp calls.
Mm-hmm.
But the principle was Digital India before the term even existed.
Well, the text actually defines Digital India. It says it's an umbrella program to prepare India for a knowledge-based transformation.
And I love the equation they give. IT plus IT equals IT.
Indian talent plus information technology, India tomorrow.
It's a bit cheesy, but it's effective. It gets the point across.
It captures the ambition. And then you have mass communication radio, which is Akashwani, television, which is Doordarshan, and newspapers. Did you know India publishes newspapers in over 100 languages and dialects?
That's incredible. And Hindi is the largest, followed by English and Urdu. We're also the largest producer of feature films in the world.
All certified by the Central Board of Film Certification. It shows the sheer cultural vibrancy that moves along these communication lines.
Now, here is a fascinating UPSC linkage regarding communication and technology that might surprise you.
Yes, 2015 GS3Q12. The question asks about standard positioning systems versus precision positioning systems and the advantages of the IRNSS program.
The Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, our own GPS, NAVIC.
Right. Now look at what the NCERT text says. It says that STD facilities were made possible by integrating the development in space technology with communication technology.
So using satellites to connect phone calls.
Exactly. IRNSS is the next evolution of that very same integration. We aren't just using space tech to carry a voice signal anymore. We're using it to manage the location of the transport on the ground.
I see.
IRNSS helps manage the truck fleets on the highways, the trains on the tracks, the ships in the ports. It's the eye in the sky managing the arteries on the ground. The text establishes the fundamental link between space and communication. The UPSC question asks you to explain the advanced application of that link for navigation and precision.
That connects the dots perfectly, from a landline in a village to a satellite in orbit.
All part of the same Lifeline network.
Finally, let's discuss what all this transport and communication is actually for. Why do we move things? The answer is trade.
Trade is the exchange of goods among people, states, and countries. And international trade, specifically, is considered the barometer of a country's economic prosperity. If you're trading a lot, you're generally growing.
And we have the concept of balance of trade.
Simple economics. If your exports are greater than your imports, it's a favorable balance. You're earning more foreign currency than you're spending.
And if imports are greater than exports, it's unfavorable.
Exactly. You're spending more than you earn.
So what are we exporting?
The traditional things are still there. Gems, jewelry, chemicals, agricultural products. But the text highlights a key shift. India has emerged as a software giant.
We're earning massive foreign exchange through the export of information technology. We aren't just exporting mangoes and spices anymore. We're exporting code and IT services.
It's a huge part of our export basket now. On the import side, the big one is petroleum crude, our biggest energy need and our biggest bill, along with machinery and electronic items.
And there is one more invisible trade, tourism.
Tourism is a trade service. When a foreigner comes to India, they bring foreign exchange. They stay in hotels, they buy food, they travel. It's an export, just an invisible one.
The text says India is ranked as the world's 4th best holiday haven by Condé Nast.
And it's not just for sightseeing anymore. You have heritage tourism, ecotourism, adventure tourism, and a big emerging sector, medical tourism.
Right. People coming here for world-class healthcare at a fraction of the cost in their home countries.
It promotes national integration. It supports local handicrafts and artisans. It's a massive job creator.
The UPSC link here.
2016 GS2 Q17. The question discusses the aims and objectives of WTO in the era of globalization and the Doha Round negotiations.
World Trade Organization.
The NCERT provides the foundational understanding of international trade and balance of trade. You cannot answer a high-level question about the WTO, which regulates all this trade, if you don't understand the basic dynamics of what India buys and sells and why trade is a barometer of prosperity, as the text says. The NCERT gives you the why trade matters. The UPSC asks you about the how global rules and conflicts affect that trade.
So we have traveled from the mud roads of a village to the high-stakes corridors of the World Trade Organization in Geneva.
That is the scope of this single chapter. It's incredible.
It really shows that lifelines of national economy isn't just a metaphor. These networks, roads, rail, pipelines, ports, internet, trade, they are the physical and digital infrastructure that allows India to function as a modern state.
Without them, we are just a collection of isolated villages. With them, we are a potential global power.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. We've unpacked roadways versus railways, the hierarchy of roads, the strategic logic of pipelines, the entire port system, the necessity of airways in the Northeast, and the digital revolution.
And we've linked every single one of those segments to a real UPSC mains question, showing that these 10th grade concepts are the absolute bedrock of civil services preparation.
Before we sign off, I have to remind you one more time. If this deep dive helped you visualize these concepts, please take a moment time. Subscribe to Simplified UPSC by PPP. Like the video, share it with your study group.
And if you're in a position to, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It allows us to keep doing this deep research and bringing you these kinds of insights.
And don't forget the Telegram channels. Public channel for the free notes and PYQs, and the private library for the premium experience, all the videos, detailed notes, and those crucial model mains answers. Just DM us to join.
And now for the final thought.
Yes, looking at the big picture.
We talked about superhighways, smart cities, and digital India. It all sounds very modern and progressive. But let's look at 2025 GS1 Q8 again. How does Smart City in India address the issues of urban poverty and distributive justice?
That's a heavy question to end on. Distributive justice.
It is. We've discussed lifelines, but we must ask the final question. Are these lifelines equally available to everyone? As we build 6-lane superhighways to connect megacities, are we ensuring that the rural road in a remote village isn't forgotten? As we lay fiber optics for digital India, is the poor student in a government school actually getting access? The true test of a national economy isn't just how fast the fastest train goes or how wide the best highway is. It's whether the transport and communication system leaves anyone behind. That is the question of distributive justice.
Something to think about as you write your answers. That's it for this deep dive. Keep learning, keep connecting the dots.
And keep questioning.
See you in the next one.